What is this?
Well, I don't want to spend much time on it, but just a couple of minutes because it's fresh. Ed has to put out a mission statement for the neighborhood house, in particular for daycare. And he ran the first draft by me, and I don't know if you ran it by you or not, but I wish I had it. I don't have the first draft with me, and I criticized it. He was trying to, in the face of heavy Jesus stuff, trying to bury a little bit of it. And in his way of doing it was to say that we pledge, the staff pledges or something, to be nice people. As far as races are concerned. And I objected to that, and here's where I get on, not for myself, but for I lose even more friends. That if we're going to be, Emmanuel is sponsoring us. If we're going to be church in the world, and these are quick words for me now, let's don't hide behind things. Let's don't apologize. Let's don't say we pledge. And so I did a trip with him. And so paragraph 2 reflects the trip I did with him pretty well, actually. This effort was conceived by people whose sensitivities to those in need are shaped by the Christian message and is called to serve. It was shaped. What is done for people in need is, at the same time, the service of God. Hilltop Neighborhood House takes a position that Christian faith requires us to be open, respectful, and welcoming to people of other religious traditions, as well as to those with no religious background or commitment. Therefore, we welcome people of other faiths or none to participate with us in the service, and we're eager to serve children from all backgrounds. Now, I can live with that. Now, the problem is, because if we're going to say we're anything at all about the Christian thing, let's don't hide. Let's say it up straight. Now, the problem is, not only Jesus people, but he's going to get flack with this paragraph.
Yeah, he went and redrafted it because Ivan and Pat came to him and said, this stuff is, all of the Jesus words and the Christian words that were put in there were put in there, I felt like, just to throw it out at you.
And then he redrafted. That's before this.
Yeah, I didn't see his redraft, but I found the approach to be fairly typically offensive.
Yeah. He redrafted, and I think you would have liked his redrafting.
Okay. Probably. And I think that Ivan and Pat and I haven't come to my own conclusion yet. We'll still have a problem with this.
Mm-hmm. On what basis?
I don't know. I'm just, I haven't thought it through yet.
Well, it requires thinking through. I know. I'm not criticizing you now. I'm just saying it does require thinking through.
And I will think it through. And
you can't. All I'm trying to say is, if we're going to use the word Christian at all, let's do it right. That's all I'm saying. Or don't do it at all. I can live with not doing it at all, but we're not going to get away with that. Okay?
By Emmanuel, you think?
And Emmanuel. We're Emmanuel's mission. I would even add a sentence in here that we're grateful to Emmanuel Church. That keeps our identity a little bit. If we say we are grateful to Emmanuel Church for sponsoring the daycare thing, which is a fact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would rather do that kind of thing. I'm not sure that the effort was conceived by people whose sensitivity to those in need are shaped by the Christian message. and it's called to serve. And it's called to serve. Shaped by who people do. I mean, is everybody in the society shaped by the Christian message? Maybe.
That's not my sentence. The rest is. Even the second sentence is not my sentence. Starting with Hilltop Neighborhood House is what I pushed for.
I'm not sure that the house takes a position, people take a position. Some of those.
Well, that's I have no problem with saying whatever needs to be said.
You know, I mean, if we're gonna say it accurately, you know, the problem with this is that not everybody in Hilltop Neighborhood House, I think, necessarily identifies themselves as Christian.
But everybody has willingly allowed and sought a manual sponsorship.
That's true.
Everybody.
Mm-hmm.
In addressing that, everybody, I would like to believe that we recognize that we wouldn't have gone to a manual church unless we believed, which I don't think most of us practice or believe, unless we believe that the Christian faith requires us to be open, respectful, etc. My problem is that people in a manual don't believe we should be open, respectful. That's why it's going
I think this will get attacked on both sides.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that it goes too far in laying Christian ideology on people in a program.
Christian faith
on people in a program that some people doing this are motivated by their Christian faith, and others are motivated by other things.
Okay, I'm not talking to, see, that's why I objected to Ed's first draft in which he said we pledged the staff members. We're talking about more than, we're not talking about individuals, but we're not only talking about individual staff members and where they're coming from and so forth. Mm-hmm. Trying to say that if you're fooling with a Christian faith, and here I would love to see the arguments. I mean, I agree with you, it's going to be attacked. But the Christian faith, I would argue, that's me, requires us to be open, respectful. Now, isn't that what we want? Isn't that what we're after? That we're open, respectful, and welcoming to people. And the fact that we're sponsored by the Christian faith, the church. It requires us to be this. We welcome people of other faiths. That's the argument.
Yeah, I mean, I find that kind of language useful in light of what people feel is a necessity to put a manual and faith out front, and I'm one who believes that the kind of witnessing that took place in the Baptist church is not very useful for anything.
No, and see, here's where I'm coming from. That for 5, 6, 7, 800 years, we've done the opposite of this. And that's what you're reflecting in your comments. We've done the opposite of this. Right?
Mm-hmm.
In the world.
And we haven't shown much respect for people of other beliefs and have been very paternalistic and lots of other things.
And still are.
And I had hoped, I guess, that I guess this is a battle that I expected, and it's going to come out the way it's going to come out. But I had hoped that a manual sponsorship would not be, I think that has a particular problem that's unfortunate.
She isn't alone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at the meeting the other night of the board, Emmanuel, I mean, led by the dean of engineering, there's a battle. Okay.
Yeah, and I expect that out of the church, but I'm saying have a problem with they have a conception about what it means to teach in the public schools and what they can and can't do with their faith that I think is founded on error.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they've thought this thing through well as teachers. And so she has kind of a knee-jerk reaction to, if we don't put it up front, then I'm not going to be able to be a Christian in the classroom.
I wouldn't worry about her. My question with you is what would you write here? You and Ivan write a paragraph that can sail through a manual.
Oh yeah, I'm not sure I can do it.
Well,
but I think
we're trying to do that.
Yeah, no, I understand. Well, I'm not being critical here of you. I think.
Well, it should be critical. I'm just simply saying this. You've already raised some things I think could change a little bit here, but I'm just trying to say where I'm coming from. If we're going to hang anything on the Christian faith, which I think we've done as a body, okay. Or we wouldn't have gone to a manual. And a manual has hung it on us, or they wouldn't have approved it.
Partly as I need to think this through a little bit, because part of my position is that I know that most of the people involved in this, that these statements are true for. Maybe not in each word, but I mean that they're motivated by their Christian faith. And I don't have any problem with people saying that and putting it out front for themselves. And, maybe, and I guess that my hope was that Emmanuel Lutheran Church and other Christians would participate with, in an open, kind of respectful way with other people. And I'm not sure that putting words like what Hilltop Neighborhood House believes. And I'm not saying that this does that, but to say we, with respect to the Christian faith, I'm not sure that that's as respectful as I would like to be about other kinds of beliefs.
Well, I don't know how more you can be than to say respectful and welcome.
Actually, that language I like a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the language. We're eager to serve children from all backgrounds. Eager.
Mm-hmm. And
nothing about beating them on the head.
But the we welcome people of other faiths means that we are all of one faith. And that's simply not true.
Well, it's very difficult to, when we say we welcome people of other faiths, we're already saying that this is a very unusual we. This we leaves room for all kinds of ways to think of things. That's what I'm trying to find. Words are important to me, even though we're in a society where they're not. Words mean the exact opposite of what they're stated, and 90 times out of 100. If a leader talks about peace or he's about to make war, is what I'm trying to say. And for 1,500 years, we've talked about love, and it meant castration in the church. I don't want to back away from that challenge. I want love to mean love and not romance. This won't sell very easily, and I think you as an individual have to, if I'm an American, I'm a critic, you know. That's what it means to be an American. I'm being corny, but what it means to be a servant of Valpo means I'm going to criticize the hell out of them. That's what it means to me, a good citizen of the U. You with me?
Mm-hmm.
If you're scared that somebody might think you're churchy by being with Hilltop for good reasons.
Actually, I'm not.
But if you were, for good reasons,
yeah.
Because, look, it took 20 years before I could use the word prayer, church, and Jesus for good reasons, okay? I mean, I couldn't use those words. But the fact of the matter is that we've asked the church to sponsor us. That's a reality. If we wanted to be purely secular, we shouldn't have done it. Right? Don't go fooling with the church if you don't want any words being used that imply Christian. From day one, when we had our temporary board meetings, we were thinking of Trinity being the church to sponsor.
We have the same problems there.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
No, what I'm trying to say is that I could see a couple of members or all of the members saying, we're going to be independent, we're going to be secular, we're not going to have any of this Christian shit.
Yeah, but I think that...
Now, excuse me, but if you're going to have the Christian shit, there are two ways to do it. Apologize for having the Christian shit or say it right. I opt for saying it right. Simple as that. I don't like apologetics. I don't like to sneak in. If you're going to do it right. Like words mean something.
Yeah.
Don't be a hypocrite.
Yep.
And it's hard. It ain't going to be, I mean, I'm going to get blasted. This is going to be, I won't just get blasted, by, as you said, by both sides.
Yeah, but I'll tell you quite frankly, the debate that we're having now and the others in Emmanuel who want to put the witness out there a little more strongly, the mission part of it out there. That's not what we were talking about. We were talking about government regulations and how do we get through them and what's the best for us and do we mind, Emmanuel's participation, realizing that we didn't think they were going to participate very heavily. I mean, and that's the truth about the initial conception. Now
you're speaking for yourself there.
I'm speaking for myself, but I'm also speaking for, if you remember the people who sat around downstairs here, there was no talk about what roles. I mean, there was no talk about what role Christians might play, what message might be.
You have not to either be stupid or not be thinking about it to ask a church to sponsor something and assume liability for something and not have.
Oh, I expected the debate. Absolutely.
Well,
not from our own group, but I expected it from Emmanuel. I expected.
Well, you can't. If you have it from Emmanuel, you got it within our group.
Sure, absolutely. I don't have any problem with it, and I don't have any problem with however it comes out. Probably. I like you would like to reflect accurately what's going on.
That's all I'm trying to do.
And
my concern is that very few people, I'm sorry to say, in the church apparently believe what's stated here.
Yeah, and I think it's important, if we're going to say anything about it, is that we say those of us who were involved in starting this thing, whatever our beliefs, felt like that Christian faith requires Christians and others, to be open, respectful, and welcoming to people. And I don't require all those words in there. I'm just saying I think you're right, is that when I ask them, I expected at least that. Because that's what I think churches ought to be doing. But, I'm not.
See, when you decide that. However, I take a position that it's only this faith that really is the. I think it's the hope of our world myself. Not what's been practiced, but this stated faith is what eliminates Bosnians and everything else, not the secular world. The secular world has produced nothing but enemies, we, they, period.
Well, I don't disagree, and you
right now in the O.J. trial is a war. It's interesting in Bob Green this morning, who quoted off a tape Cochran, who was working for a TV network prior to his taking the assignment with O.J. The tape said, I think the big thing is that he planted and the police. On the tape, he said, I think the police did the right, I forget the words, going over the wall. Was the necessary and the right thing to do at that time and that circumstance. It is stated better than that.
Yeah.
And now he's 100% opposite making a war for the whole country. That's the secular world. I don't buy it. I think the secular world, sorry to say, I don't care with all its laws and egalitarianism and everything, produces nothing but we, they. The Christian faith stated is what allows people, because everything's a game, it's not an absolute, to come together and argue and discuss without a war. And that's what I'm trying to get across.
See, and Walt, you misread me perhaps, is I'm not claiming to be wholly secular. I see that religious belief adds a dimension and perhaps the kind of hope that you see. I've come a long way from saying, I reject all that. I don't know. I don't know a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of value in people's Christian faith. I also see a lot of values in some other faiths. I'm not as convinced as you are that the Christian faith is the only one that has answers for our secular world. And I agree with your criticism of the secular world. And I'm not a man without beliefs, without some spirituality, but it doesn't translate the same way, perhaps.
Okay. I just want to be clear that I'm open to any Muslims, Islam, Buddhists, anything else, meeting the needs of our present global society. The only thing is, even their stated beliefs don't make sense to my mind.
Yeah, and that may be, and I may.
I'm not even talking about practice.
That's right. And I may agree with you that a lot of Christian stated belief makes sense for our world.
It's almost impossible to find that in practice.
That's right. And that's, see, I don't expect to have any, with Trinity Church over here, I don't expect to have any problem with their mission in the world. If I were to just read the words, and look at what the ought is, or look at the ought, what ought to be in the church. But I expect to have problems because I think people act in different ways. They don't live it out. They don't listen to.
What's interesting to me is that we're in a world which people don't understand whenever I say this, is action for action's sake. I keep saying no. Paulo Freire's statement, praxis, the word that changes things, is reflection and action, both together. These are words we're talking about. These words are dynamite. Whatever is stated here, they're dynamite. Words today can be more where it's at than anything. But that's my little.
Well, I think, words can, words carry, they have something to do with ability to bring about lots of things, both beliefs and action.
Yeah. Well, I would suggest that you make as many comments as possible and get them to Ed as soon as possible.
Yeah, I will.
Now I don't know whether we.
Part of the problem with it is that Ed has. Well, this is yesterday. This is the day before, a few days ago.
Is that the draft? The first draft that he did?
This is September 27th.
That's not the same thing I just gave you?
No, that is what you gave me.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. And I wonder, whether Ed would show this to Ivan before the meeting.
Ask him to. If I see him, I will.
No, I just wonder if he would have. The revision began because Ivan and Patty went up to him at the meeting and said,
Well, he's keenly aware of.
Oh, I'm sure he is. And he's trying to find a way through the morass.
No.
And I think, in good faith.
I don't know if you have any carryable questions. We haven't done work yet, and only one carryable word that I want to just clear the decks quickly is I'm not sure I was understood too well at the board meeting on quality. That is very similar to what we're talking about. I personally hope that we fight for a quality program, and that will be attacked by both sides, just like what we've been talking about. Makes me think of some of our project neighbors' kids who didn't want to go to camps when they first came here, because they'd been to camps sponsored in Chicago by the inner city, YMCA's and stuff, and they couldn't stand it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a corny example, but now, John Striedelmeyer's comment is in part well taken. You better believe we'll give priority to the poor. And how we'll screen a family that wants to send their kid because they're poor in color there to our thing. How we screen them is a good question. I don't know. But to cross boundaries of race and color is class is what I'm talking about in quality. And it's essential.
Yeah. No, I think,
but it's going to get blasted because we'll have, no matter what, we're going to have to draw the line on people,
right.
Rich and poor.
That's right.
I had no problem with that myself.
I don't either. I mean, yeah, and partly it's what I learned from the law is people, and from what I have to explain to people is that we discriminate all the time.
That was well taken.
And it's just a matter of how do we choose to discriminate. And I'm not talking about illegal discrimination, blah, blah, all that. That doesn't make any difference to me because we're not motivated by any of that. We're not motivated.
Pressure will be there, though.
I probably told you this. I sat in an ACLU meeting where I'm talking about creating a position that will allow Rick Bussey to do more ACLU work. That individual person, because he's been the president for years, he's kept the organization going, he has the energy for it. And I'm trying to raise a little bit of money, so because he has a particular personal situation, he's laid off or one, or he quits or whatever, and he got more time. How do we create some money for a little part-time position? And I was following the Project Neighbors thing with, it was the same kind of theory. Let's do it in ACLU, and the board members say, well, we'll probably have to post the position, for, women and minorities and all this stuff, and, we don't want to discriminate. And I said, what, you're nuts. I don't want to post the position and try to get the best person from someplace else, so that we can make sure we don't discriminate against women. No, I want to create a position for a person. I want to discriminate.
That's the world
and it's totally reasonable, rational, and legal to create a position for an individual. Because our organization wants to do that. It's like, what do you want to do? You want to create a position, recruit somebody from Detroit, or New York, or Chicago, who doesn't know a thing about Northwest Indiana.
ACLU, in their arguments, is simply rubber stamping our society today.
Right, and that's I feel the same way about who Hilltop lets in. I think you're right. We ought to be very careful about the mix. But the mix has two or three or four or 8 sides to it. Right?
Sure. I Project Neighbors started, I remember, you probably remember my saying that I prefer my own life, from my own experience, I prefer to work with 13, 12-year-old who are probably gang members from Chicago. I prefer it. But there's no way, the reality is there's no way Valpo community is ready for that kind of stuff. So we chose little kids. That's our goal. If you didn't have little kids, you're discriminated against. You're not going to get one of our houses,
That's right. And we've practiced a kind of, almost irrational discrimination from society's point of view. It's like, how do you decide who gets into your houses? Well, it's like if somebody knows somebody who has a need and we can figure out a way to meet that need and we feel like it,
Yeah.
I mean, is that fairly accurate?
Yeah.
Well, is that fair? Well, what do you mean fair? What's that have to do with anything here? It's what we choose to do.
That's the newism. It's the newism.
It's what we choose to do with our time. Is Trinity's building this house. What was their selection process? They selected a person in the church who was disabled, and it was going to be more disabled, who had blah, blah, blah. Is that fair? No. She the most needy? No. She worth helping? Probably.
Mm-hmm. Well, anyhow, it'll be a battle.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the place that day, but I mean, I'd like to get across to the Streetelmeyers, who's really whether he knows or not, reflecting the liberal position on numbers. All right. Where we go? I had to thing on work way back there. I don't think we got to. I don't know.
No, we haven't.
I don't know if you want to go to it or not or what. I mean, the Rifkin kind of thing.
Yeah, and
but whatever.
What we were talking about. It'd be nice if I could read my writing. We spent some time talking about God, and I feel like that discussion wasn't over.
No.
I mean,
and you can't separate it from the other, though. I mean, the two go together. So it takes time.
No, absolutely. I'm not complaining. I'm saying that
I'm just trying to.
That part of what I started with in terms of what we're doing here is I'm really interested in what motivates, what drives you. And I think some other people are too, in terms of why do you live the life you live? Why do you do the things you do? And part of that, I mean, I just say that's part of what is going on here. But part of it for me is, I'm interested in what your personal beliefs are in God, and I think that you tend to talk abstractly about it. And I want to know, maybe
it's not abstract at all.
No,
I know that. Yeah.
I'm not saying it is abstract. I'm saying that some of the talk has been taken, and I don't mind it, being talk in theory, but part of what I'm interested in is the personal. Day to day, what do your religious beliefs mean in your life? And it may be, I find the way you talk to be something I'm very comfortable with because I understand it in my own life, but I was thinking that probably it's different for you than it is for me. And maybe it's not. I don't know.
I don't know either. Well, as a Christian, life has meaning for me. And as a student of history, I know that history has no meaning. Whether it's Karl Marx's history or what history, it has no meaning. It makes no sense.
What do you mean by that?
History is simply a record of human beings' absurd deeds.
Okay, touche.
All right.
It's the O.J. Simpson trial, right?
And life is not absurd for me as a Christian. It has a beginning and it has an end. And everything fits into that meaning. I'm not here by chance, necessity, or accident. And what's interesting, technology is becoming, if not already there, totalitarian. And I happen to know that living things, thought, for example, can't be reproduced. You can't reproduce living things. You can't reproduce thought. So it doesn't
You mean with technology?
Yeah.
Living things can be produced.
Reproduced.
We talk about reproduction. We make children. We make children.
Not really. You don't make children.
Children.
You can implant some sperm somewhere. Or
children are created. I mean, they come into being.
But not by man. We make it possible for that to happen rather than impossible. We can make it possible for less than half the kids to die before they're 11 with a little work, in some countries. But we don't create living things, or we don't create living thoughts. You can't reproduce it. Well, that might be a play on words. It might be a hard one.
No, I know what you're saying. I think I know what you're saying.
And the word that we read in the Bible, are words give meaning to what we see. Now that's where I can get into work and stuff. Rifkin sees the future and shortening the work week. And if you do that and still keep your 24-hour, 7-day-a-week operation, the plant's production will triple. What he doesn't know is he's just talking history. What he doesn't know is production is the problem. Tripling production is the elimination of the rainforest, elimination of the individual thoughts, ideas, opinions. Production has no room for opinions and thoughts and thinking. Efficiency doesn't allow for those things. So that's the destruction of the individual. More production is a guarantee that we'll have English all over the world. Guarantee that cultures will be destroyed and are being. Traditions are gone. Guarantee of no more reference points. And without reference points, you can't critique what's going on. So production's a problem. And yet, Rifkin, who does a beautiful job, Clarence Page here on the Disappearing Act does a beautiful job. Very few people do it. Of critiquing as far as what's happening today. Most people are either pessimists or optimists, and translated are fatalists. They don't critique shit. So interrupt me on this side to make it real, not abstract. I think I did the Galileo thing for you once, didn't
Remind me.
All right. In this big paintbrush, okay. Prior to Galileo and through Galileo, and for quite a while afterwards, actually, the world stood still. You wouldn't see a cost of living index rise or fall. Everything was stationary. There was no change. Every year, every month, every seasons, that was it. Nature was static, and nature was our God. In that world, the woodcutter, the carver, the cook, folks could use nature like nobody can use it today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they were extraordinarily good at taking from nature stuff, using it, cooking with it. Galileo, who was a hero of the Pope, and a hero of the crown, the scientist for them both, looks in a telescope, and one of the first ones, and says, "Shit, we're moving." And that destroyed the entire world's ground of being. And those folks, those leaders knew what that meant. Everything's up for grabs. People don't raise questions about things. You know, if nature is changing and it's not the ground of our being, everything that we hinge everything on is up for grabs. So this man who was their delight was destined for the gallows. But being that he was a buddy of the cross and the crown and had a little clout, he got to live the rest of his life in a little room up in the tower with no pencil, no microscope, no telescope, but he wasn't put to the gallows. And he couldn't speak anymore. Now, translated, we now, thanks to Galileo, scientists since then had discovered that nature is a system. You cut wood in Brazil, you're going to fuck up the whole system. You're going to get rid of birds in Alaska or something. You with me?
Sure.
It's a system. Everything in a system, you touch one part, it affects the other. And nobody was into that before. Okay? Now, once we got to know that nature is a system, we now could begin to control nature. We're now controlling our own natures. Are you unhappy? Here's a pill. You're depressed? Here's a pill. You're in pain? Here's a pill. You don't have babies? Here's a pill. We control it. Now,
Galileo's message was not that there is chaos.
No. But by saying it's moving,
it created
chaos.
It
told the truth.
It created a disruption in the belief system that, we're the center.
Belief systems, and that's right. And truth always is painful. People hate truth. Now, here comes something that's Rifkin. I'm sorry. None of these people understand. In technology, in the global system, the Clarence Pages and the Rifkins and the Popes and the Doles and the Gingrichs and Clintons, all of them, more or less, are good cooks, good wood carvers. In our world today, similar to these folks were in the world of nature, okay? We have technicians that I cannot believe. I mean, we do things that just blow my mind. Nuclear energy is a lot more than atom bombs. Even that blows my mind. How can this thing produce something that destructive? This thing you can't even see. Good and bad. Physicists, chemists, biologists just blow my mind today. Computers blow my mind. And I understand that. I am not against good cooks. You follow the metaphor. Not against good, I like good cooks. I like beautiful wood carving stuff. I like herbs, literally today. But I like having my life saved by nuclear energy in the bowels of Porter Memorial. Okay? Nuclear science. But what I happen to know, thanks to experience and words of a man, I happen to know that we weren't before. Not too many years ago, fuck the outboard motor. The gods are against it. You got to stand on the stern and use a pole, not even oars. You with me on that one? It's kind of wild. The gods are against it. You can't build a church, Eastern Orthodox, unless every single square inch of that ceiling has a message or some shit like that. Okay? Or it's out. We're now, that's gone. I mean, there was a little crossover during Patty's days in high school and Becky's. She got kicked out of school for wearing sandals or long hair because it's not up, it's old. I mean, that's the way it should be or something like that, isn't it? Thanks to the ACLU and others, anything goes today. That's not a good one, but we were not in a technological system until about somewhere early 70s. People would say no to Michael Jordan shoes. People would say no McDonald's in my town or country. As a matter of fact, you might have seen the commercial on TV. I mentioned this to you. This little pint-sized Asian girl, and suddenly came out that she was South Korean, on super high platform diving, doing flips and gainers and twists and everything else. She's preparing for the Olympics in Atlanta. Okay? Mm-hmm. And they do a beautiful job. She's such a sweet woman. Now she's going to be 10,000 miles away from home. Will she, I don't remember the word, psychologically, emotionally, how's she going to make it? This little thing, all by her lonesome. But she will be at home. They do the big M. McDonald's.
There is something in her life that is unchanging, that's secure. She has a reference point.
She has a reference point.
The big M.
Now that reference point is global, hence it can't critique anything. That's exactly right. The reference points today leave no room for critique. She can't critique her own tradition or anything else. That's her home. That's a perfect one. What we don't understand, Toffler, Rifkin, is that we are in a system. It's what Galileo discovered. It's with nature. It's what my friend wrote about, 50 books. That we're in a system. That when you touch the Falkland Islands, you're fucking up the British Isles. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When you have a little S&L close in Ohio 8-10 years ago, the border trade in London that night changed because of an S&L close, the first one. You with me?
Yeah.
It's a global system thanks to the computer now, which at one time had a chance to mess it up on a democratic self-management basis. Can't do it anymore. So that's my Galileo thing. And if we don't understand technology as a system, whether we're in the Christian faith, church members, whatever, if we don't understand it as a system, we are making new sacreds. Production is a sacred. It's not questioned by anyone, left or right. We're making new sacreds, new mountains to worship, new altars, worth killing over. And so the Christian faith for me means one of the first acts of freedom is to be aware of the fact that we live in a global system. You can take all the cruise ships you want, but you ain't going to get out of the global system, even if you're going to Timbuktu. As the computer takes care of you from portal to portal. If it doesn't take care of you, at least keeps track of you. Yeah. And it's that little thing, understanding technology as a system. When Ellul first started writing, he called it a technological society. Now, technological society meant, wow, pill. Wow, all worship of science, wow. That's not the system. Now that we're in the system, Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island doesn't hurt the system at all. It just makes it better, corrects itself. The computer's breaking down at O'Hare doesn't wreck the system. It makes the system stronger. The Federal Drug Association, flaws in the pill make it stronger, the system. And, you with me, Lou?
Well, it's a belief that we can accomplish anything.
Precisely, and
there's nothing that can't be.
And that represents the only feedback. The feedback is ourselves, is itself. The drug feeds back to the drug. You with me? There's no outside forces feeding back into this thing. It's autonomous. It's totally autonomous. And it makes no difference whether you're white, black, Christian, non-Christian, anything. This system. And feeds on itself, nothing else. And the rewards, if you play the game, are so seducing. And we mentioned this before. Marx says, look, getting 10 cents more an hour and 10 more minutes of coffee break, all that does is kill the revolutionary will. That's all it's accomplished. You become part of the system. Well, if Marx were alive, he would be doing what I'm doing. The seduction of 10 cents more an hour and 10 more minutes of coffee break ain't nothing compared to what the rewards are paid off today if you play the game. Very seducing. The church loves the New World Order. He loves her. Worships her. Loves investment. The church has investment clubs. Etc., etc., etc. It's awful. And now you're Galileo. I'm Galileo. My problem is I'm not a highly respected technician in the world. So what's this weirdo saying? It's interesting. I mean, don't think when you asked me earlier on meaning in life, I am not about self-justification, even though we all are, and I'm part of that, okay? When Fuzzy, in a very, very intriguing way, in front of this big homecoming crowd, alumni, and
yeah, I didn't hear exactly what happened there. What did he say?
Well, he's been around. I mean, he's been honored a million times, so he's a master at this, okay? Mm-hmm. And when you have a voice box, and I can't even hear him talking like this, but the microphone helped him. And when people get honored at halftime, it's usually the most boring thing you can possibly imagine. Mm-hmm. In every stadium, okay? There was total silence because of the voice box, and you could see it. Mm-hmm. Very white, flat beard. Total silence. It's funny how you can, if people are soft-spoken, how people suddenly shut up. Listen, it's interesting. But you could hear every word. They even heard it. The faculty heard it across the field. I couldn't believe that. And I've been here for 30 years. I mean, Valpo's not on his mind. Okay? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Just believe me, he did a masterful job of touting Valpo. Mm-hmm. And all the way back to different personalities, including O.P. Krebsman. Of course, O.P.'s wife is there, and Mark Krebsman was there, Steve Krebsman was there, so forth.
Was Mark there too?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And, but I mean, he did a lot of folks. He didn't hurt Elsie Bauer. M. Bauer, my co-coach. Mm-hmm. Widows there. I mean, I wouldn't have thought of it. He mentioned Emery Bauer's name. So he hit all the right people and did it in a very, very fine way. And then he says, "Now there's something else I got to tell you." I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Coach Walt. And then I can't remember something he said. It was good. I mean, it wasn't dishonest. Mm-hmm. And he said some things, some things that really happened, that how it worked out. And now, what I'm getting at is some of the things right before that I said. If I were Ed Sinney, and if I were Don Williams, some of these other folks, I got a problem. I got a real problem with that thing we talked about. Mm-hmm. I got a hell of a problem with what I know about this system and what it's doing to all of us in my role as a servant to warn the world. I got a hell of a problem. And, but by Fuzzy doing that, I'm standing, I didn't want to be any part of it. You don't go to basketball games. He's also a hot shot at the church and so forth. Came up to me, "Come on, you got to." He announces the basketball games. So this guy, I don't know, he's a big shot at church too. Yeah. You got to go ahead and stand with Fuzzy here. Here's the crowd. They're standing ovations. Yeah. You got to come stand with Fuzzy. No. Just cool it.
Yeah.
This is fuzzy state, you know.
Yeah.
And those guys don't understand that shit at all. And, but what I'm trying to say is, there was a lot of people. It was high moment, and after that, now tons of people came to me and wanted to take a video with me and Fuzzy. I just you know, but they would say, they would come to me. I didn't even know you were a coach. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, people I've known for years. You know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm talking about 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, and then some locals, a lot of locals, and of course, Phil Gilbertson must have shit a brick.
Why?
We've told you this before. He's the dean of the College of Arts and Science. He was on our temporary board.
No, I know Phil.
Yeah. Since day one here, I mean, please, Loya, back me up. She knows this. You know, Walt's a nice guy, but I'm not an intellectual. I'm not in that. I'm not in the big time world. Okay, I'm just a good citizen. Okay, which is better than being a bad citizen. Which some people would say.
So he's got some of that kind of academic.
So, but for the last 2-3 years, VU's had, and there have been other things, has had big occasions, you know, big speakers and so forth, and some banquets and so forth. And Lo and I usually go, you know.
Sit in the audience.
Sit in the audience. And then here's Paul Simon. Hey, Walt! Here's Jerry Pelican. And then this is big and intellectual. He is the provost now of Yale Graduate School. I mean, it doesn't get much bigger. Okay. Hey, Walt! Here's Phil Gilbertson. Here's one at Marty. I mean, Time Magazine goes to Marty. What's happening in this? You know, in the church. You know, hey, Walt! Just one after another, including Bob Bertram. You know, he comes as a main speaker at the Liturgical Institute. Hey, sit with me. You know, just one after another. Now comes this shit. You know. And Alan was starting to catch on. Alan hung around me after the Fuzzy thing for a long time.
Well, you know, I mean, it must feel pretty good, though, to have, the ones you've affected recognize you. I mean, that's got to mean a whole lot more than having an Alan Hari stand up and say, good job, you know, from what you did in the past.
Oh, there's no question about that.
He doesn't have any connection with that.
But all I'm saying now is that I have a little more responsibility and opportunity, just a wee bit more than I had before.
Sure.
To be Galileo. These are quick words.
Yeah. Well, it's got to bring.
I'm not an asshole.
That's right. It's got to bring him up a little short, and make him think twice.
I have been more involved in race relations in this town than anybody else in this town.
Mm-hmm.
I've been more involved in race relations at the university than anybody else at the university. In 50 years, not once have they asked me to say anything, comment on a one-to-one, anything, committee, anything. No committees ever.
Because they don't want to have to. They got to deal with it and you anyway. They don't want you on the inside.
Absolutely.
Telling them what to do.
Absolutely. But that's kind of intellectually stupid.
Well, yeah, but that's how they operate.
And so it's interesting. The theology department, the same way. I'm invited to every dinner, everything in the theology department, every cocktail party, everything else. And I've been involved in some pretty heavy, big stuff in the world. I won't go into that now, but they know, I know the thought of Jacque Ellul, who's known throughout the world by thinkers as maybe the greatest thinker that we've had in our century, by a handful of people all over the world. Okay, and they know I know him personally. I know him. They don't want to hear, and they also know that at a time where we had no money, I'm talking about the last 2 or 3 years, I would say, Dave, I don't care if it's just 1 or 2 students, but it relieves the pressure. I'd be glad to teach a seminar on the life and thought of works of Jacque Ellul for nothing. I would love it. Way, man, way. I don't have the credentials. That's their excuse. But at any rate, all I'm trying to say is that yes, they made my responsibility just a tad heavier and better in a sense.
Sure.
Because it's no fun to know what I know, right or wrong. I don't get any arguments that I'm wrong. They just walk away. That's not an argument. That's all I ever get is people walk away. It's hard to know what I know about being a Galileo. Well, I never used this before. Being a Galileo and never have anybody to talk with. I thank you. I mean, this is it.
Well, you know, I told you a long time ago, it's a two-way street. I get as much, I do this, you know, it's like everything we do. We do what we do for ourselves, first of all.
Oh, sure. Self-interest is a starting point.
And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in a positive way.
Sure.
Is that,
I know
that I get better than I give here. And,
but the point I'm making is, I'm satisfied. But, you know, I am a worldly creature, and having an audience of an hour a week I feel a little restless at times. I'd like to be sharing what's the crisis that we're all in a little more.
We started talking about that last time we met, and you know about some kind of discussion group on kind of where we are in the world and what we're doing, and whether it focuses.
I'm not sure. I think you were right. You had a hesitancy, and I've tried it a little bit. I'm not sure that has a shot.
I don't know. I mean, I can't. My memory gets so bad sometimes.
It doesn't have a shot if I orchestrate it and push it.
Yeah, but
that much I can say.
And one thing you said is one thing I do know how to do, if I haven't forgotten, is how to facilitate a discussion amongst people. I used to be pretty good at it. I haven't done it in a while, but in terms of staying out of it myself, I do so much of, my talking these days. But if I stay out of it and let other people talk, maybe that's something we can orchestrate. And I guess I was thinking about things like, I don't know what form it would take or how often or who, but it's something that maybe we can think about.
Even discussing that paragraph that we started this in with, the moment our discussee has no respect for different opinions, and then that's a waste of time. But there are some Jesus people out there that are reasonably open and believe passionately, in that narrow look. I would enjoy discussing that paragraph, but I repeat, I think you're leaning towards. I couldn't agree more that there needs to be some moderator for that. On a bigger level, what I have wanted to scream since '87, when the Pope came out with his social concerns encyclical. Never say it right. Unbelievable document. It was a Rifkin, but more than that. In '87. No, in the Catholic Church, prior to that, when the Pope came out with one of these encyclical, how do you say it, encyclical?
I think so.
Catholics had to practically memorize it, okay? This didn't last long. This was a dynamite thing.
This is not Hatchman Terrace. I'm the one behind, right?
Yeah. This was a dynamite thing. In essence, he said this was in the middle of the Cold War of half the world against the other half. He says, it doesn't make any difference if you're on this side or this side. The poor getting poorer, the rich getting richer. Unemployment is growing. Famine is growing. Refugees are growing. Immigrants. Disease is growing. And he just, page after page, dissected all those things, and he's representing his self-interest at 300 million of his state, because he's head of state, are third world poverty people. So politically, I believe that they're very political in the Vatican. But political, he's one of the few people that could say these things. You with me?
Mm-hmm.
And represent his people politically. When he fights against abortion, he fights against homosexuality and divorce and stuff like that. Oh, he's got 300 million people on his side. Yeah, he's not talking about Americans. He doesn't fool with Americans. He lets them do what they want. But he got 300 other million people out there that are his people. They would kill him if he said, politically.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of spelling out the East-West thing, he said armaments by both sides are killing us. And not just literally. Taking all our resources, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. No, I'm saying this for a reason. And then we got to quit. Just think for a moment. I told the head of the theology department when I was in Germany at the time when I came home. As a matter of fact, I went over to the local Catholic parish to discuss this. Wasted time. Absolute waste of time. I said, see, this, I'm talking about St. Teresa's or something, mm-hmm. the student Catholic church.
Yeah.
Which are involved in the university and all that. And the university is important. The university is the forefront of the new, where the Galileo better be, because they're turning them all out. And I said, we champion at VU, and all of us intellectual folks champion Judeo-Christian dialogues, conferences, seminars, and there's a whole church periodicals just on these things. Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Lutheran, Catholic dialogues, and seminars.
Sure. That's big.
Yeah. And see, here's where I can't say very well. I'm telling the truth, but I can't. You got to say it better than that. To come together and spend 4 or 5 days or a week in an ecumenical Lutheran Catholic or whatever it is, or Judeo-Christian, and see where we're alike. Wow. We both agree on the same liturgical ritual statement here. Mm-hmm. At the end of a week, they come out, we agree on this ritual liturgical statement. It means absolutely shit, Nothing. absolutely nothing. And there's a lot of reasons it means nothing, but I won't go into that. And it means we're going nowhere. Now what, let me ask you, I would say, what if it's true and there's nobody that disputes it? The German government doesn't dispute it. The German media put out a whole newspaper from beginning to end. Global Denken, Lokal Handlung. Headline, big black. Think globally, act locally. Whole headline, and every article in a whole newspaper, national newspaper, was devoted to the problem of the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poor. One issue, okay? This isn't me making it up. Whether it's a Muslim country, Buddhist country, the rich are getting richer and the poor, and that's devastating. The implications of that are devastating, to where we're heading. What if there's an ecumenical conference or something for a week or something that's laid out a little bit better, like the Pope's and something, or this one here disappearing. What if that's laid out? What's happening? This is what's happening. Don't give these answers because they don't hold up. Why is it happening? Nobody wants the rich to get richer and the poor get poor. Nobody wants it. It's too costly. It costs more than nuclear bombs. Nobody wants it. Republicans don't want it. They're scared of it. Democrats. Nobody wants it. Why is it happening? Now, what if you laid that out and say, all right, Catholic theologians, how do you respond to this crisis that we're in and coming harder and no stop in sight? How do you respond to it? Lutheran theologians, what does Lutheran theology have to say to this? Jewish theologians, what is Jewish theology? Throw in some Muslims. Now, thinking people would know and would begin to see, if they're open to understanding why it's happening, if thinking, not many, but some thinking people coming together Galileo's time would say, my God, we are moving. He's right. And do we realize what that means to this, what we've been doing? If some thinking people came together. As a matter of fact, they did that in time. And their answer was, we'll let science go its way and we'll go our way. That was the result. Till science took over everything. Now we're married.
The problem.
And now we're married to science. Science won. Theology got us dead. But what if a Catholic Lutheran week-long seminar discuss what does our theology say to that? Now we're going to find out that some of our theology is a bunch of shit. Has nothing to say to that. On the other hand, we're going to find, we both agree to this.
It's interesting. Dennis Friesenkarper, do you know him at all?
No.
He's an interesting guy. Because we'll do a scripture study in this Trinity Forum thing here.
Yeah.
And he'll pick out, he says, why do we ignore this verse? But since, he says,
why do we ignore it?
Yeah, why do we ignore it? He said, and it's the verse that says, give up everything you own and follow me. It's like, give all your stuff to the poor. Don't have anything. Yeah. It's like, he says, now, we ignore that verse. He said, we're talking about all this stuff. This is the lesson today. And here's this one. This little set of verses here. He says, that doesn't mean, how do we write that off?
Or, hate your mother and your father. Hate your kids. Hate yourself. And unless you do these things, you will not know the truth that makes you free. Well, I tell you what Emmanuel did with that last week blew my mind. We counted the cost when we added our $3 million building program. We counted the cost. That's what he's trying to say. And we didn't do more than, even though we needed to do more, we didn't do more than, I couldn't believe what I'm hearing. And, why do
it's the lie, twist, and confuse is one thing, but I think justify and ignore is. But I was just thinking about Dennis because he's one who I think thinks and would like to see. So you said people don't like to hear the truth.
There's a gospel lesson at Trinity and everywhere that all the pastors skip every year. And it's in Luke 16 or something, in which on the dishonest servant, he got caught with his hand on the till by the king. Okay? And then the king said, I'm giving you 4 days to clean this act up, and then you're fired. Something like that. Pretty literally true what I'm saying. He says, shit. I won't be without a job. I'm not going to need friends, anything. I know what I can do. Calling George. George owed 10,000 denarii or something. How much you owe? 10,000? Give me 5, and I'll wipe the books clean. How much you owe? 500? Give me 200, and I'll wipe the books clean. He's bribing people to be friendly with him after he's fired. Okay? Be nice to him, be friends, and everything under the sun. And lo and behold, the king commended him for this. Now, every Lutheran pastor skips his gospel lesson for this Sunday, the good news lesson for this Sunday. Why? It's a tough one. I figured it out, but I'm not sure. Everybody got to figure it out. I figure out what's the good news. For me, I don't know if that's right.
What is it?
For me, the lesson is about money, and incidentally, whenever these parables in the gospel lesson, almost invariably, the sermons will make the hero a person in the story. The hero's always the Lord. Okay? It's not the prodigal son or anything else. It's the Lord. The Father in that case. But here's the Lord commended this dishonest steward. I have to figure out what's the good news here. Well, it was money. It cost him his family, his job, and his everything. His snitching money. Money used him. Now he's using money. And the Lord is saying, it ain't the money. Everything, he says in other places in the Bible. Everything. Sex, booze, cocaine, everything is for those that are free in Christ to use. But not to use you. And that's how I read this. That's the good news. That money is there to be used, not for it to use you.
Huh.
That's not a bad way to look at it. I've never ever heard that preached or anything. I've only heard people skip that lesson.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta go.
Okay. Well, I got another book for you sometime.
All right, which one?
It's by Anita Raddick, called Body and Soul.
Yeah.
She's the person who started, and I think you had a lot of criticism of it, but it's interesting. She started organization called the Body Shop, and they sell cosmetics and other kinds of products. And she's an old 60s kind of radical. She's got like 1,300 stores. And I don't hold it up as perfection by any stretch, but she has this concept that, you know, corporations, companies, made up of people, and you can do things in the world. So, you know, she tries to be ecologically sound and tries to develop trade with third world countries, which is beneficial to them. That is that they get something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that they learn how to support themselves. It's not gifts, but it's enablement of living in this world. And it's socially responsible, and she encourages her employees.
She's using the institution.
That's right. She encourages her employees to do volunteer work, and she says, speculators. She says, I owe them nothing. And the speculators, they're the stockholders.
Mm-hmm.
Right? She says they don't come to our meetings, they don't respond to our mailings. She says, I run this business as if I owe them nothing.
And, I have to read it.
And what I find, you know, this book is kind of her little autobiography and talking about how the corporation runs. And what is refreshing is that she apparently tries to tell the truth about herself, whether it reflects well on her or not.
Mm-hmm.
She says, you know, I wasn't trained in business, so I didn't know any of this stuff. But, you know, who says business can't have a soul? I mean, where is the rule? You know, why can't I run my business this way?
I'm eager to read it.
And I thought that was kind of, I mean, that's refreshing. It's the kind of challenge. It's the kind of, you know, it's like, who says? We as a corporation can't do something different. And I add that to the hopper of you know, one of the things they're thinking about is how do we make this world different? You know, how do we make this world different for our kids? How are we going to reinvent it in a sane way?
And well, that's where I'm serious on Hilltop. I mean, that's act locally. I mean, Hilltop is our institution. Is it going to be?
It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to follow the rules.
But if it doesn't, it better be prepared and strong.
That's right. I mean, you know, we think about it in terms. I mean, one of the debates we're going to have is discrimination.